Pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, what does that mean for America and the rest of the world? Joining us right now is foreign policy expert Paul Kinzinger. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Mike.
So, from your perspective, when you saw this happen, we all saw this coming. The president promised this during the election, but what exactly does this mean?
Well, I think it means several things. One is that it's going to, on the largest stage, it's going to continue an enduring enmity between the United States and Iran at the government-to-government level. This is, one of the tragedies of the last 50, 60 years in many ways. Iranian people, 80 some odd million of them, proud, 6,000-year-old culture, believes they have a lot to give, believes they should be respected, and are largely they have a very pro-American attitude, especially among the younger Iranians. What's not true is that the government doesn't. The government's made up of people who are mostly counterparts to our boomer population, and they have an age-old hatred of the United States, ranging back to the U.S. role in the coup in the early 50s. That is a big part of their history. So, unfortunately, we have probably created yet another set of hurdles between any kind of reconciliation between Iran, the population, and America's population.
Was there a possibility, though, of that reconciliation with this current regime in Iran? Without regime change, was there ever going to be a reconciliation? It's
a thin thread, no question. It's been one that, the thin thread that everybody's been trying to pull on since 1979. You have to ask yourself a core existential question here, and that is it the United States' job to change the regime in Iran, or is it the Iranian people's job to do this? And frankly, we chose the former path in the early 50s, and it worked for 20-odd years while we had the Shah in power. But the blowback from it over the last nearly 40 years has been very bad in the other direction. So, you have to wonder, does the United States want to be in the regime change business anymore? Do we want to be in the boots on the ground business in the Middle East anymore? I got to ask American people, frankly, ask themselves, do they really want to be doing these two kinds of things and make the commitment it's going to take? My sense from the last several years of Iraq and Afghanistan is that the answer to that is a resounding no. So, do you then come to the point where, well, what is our strategy for stopping Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, which we've got to believe the hardliners really want to do and have really wanted to do no matter what.
Right.
And have had to bite their lips over the last year and a half or so since this agreement came into play. They're probably dancing in the streets or in their own penthouses, gleeful that this thing is going down the tubes now. And are making the case, we got to build a bomb and we got to be able to defend ourselves.
But do you think that the agreement as it was going to stop them or even slow them down from getting a nuclear bomb?
Well, of course, any agreement that isn't perfect, which is pretty hard to get these days in a world as complex as it is, you have to make bets that somehow this is going to work out over time. There will be dynamic changes that will cause the pieces to fall into place. That was, I think, the bet the world made when this agreement was set up. It's not perfect, but it's the best we can get at the time. I think, did it have flaws? Yeah, like most agreements, it wasn't perfect. But I think the question now for this administration is, what's the alternative? Frankly, what do we got?
Well, do you think the similarities in the way the president handled North Korea with the threats they were making when they were at the stages of testing the ICBMs and possibly delivering a warhead, the way we were able to rally China and Russia and to get the economic sanctions? Now, nothing's perfect with the North Koreans, right, but at least now they're coming to the table. That same strategy seems to be what the president wants to do, but now we have Great Britain, France, and Germany not with us on this, saying they don't like us pulling out of this agreement. Is it possible to use the same kind of economic restrictions in Iran and get them to change their minds about coming to the table?
So great questions, and I think, we'll see about that. Let's talk about North Korea for a minute,
okay,
however. And that is that, the situation in North Korea has always been in the hands of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. That's it. And we still don't know and may never know what brought Kim to the position he's at today. Our president can say, well, it was me and all the blustering I did, but we're probably not going to know that. Could be a lot of different reasons. Could be something whispered in his ear in Beijing when he was there on his little train ride.
Yep.
A couple months ago. Could be something that he just saw in the Olympics and said, I got to have a change of heart. We're not going to know. But in essence, and the other part of this is we don't yet know what he intends to do about his nuclear program. What he has engaged in is a lot of rapprochement with the South, with his neighbors, and being willing to meet with the U.S. president and so on and so forth. We don't yet know what he's willing to do on the nuclear program. What we do know about what he really wants is an end to isolation, the lifting of sanctions, investment in North Korea by the richer powers around him. And he may well think he can still get a lot of this stuff, or an acceptable amount of this stuff, without having to give up very much on the nuclear front. So we'll see. The devil's in the details there. That then leads to Iran, which is a much harder nut to crack than North Korea. It is not nearly as isolated. It's not nearly the hermit kingdom in the sense that North Korea is. It's just kind of little place up there with 15 million starving people. This is a vibrant place that's core in the Middle East, and it has the ability to interfere in its region and a desire to do so at a much more higher level than North Korea has. So, and as a result of its location, the number of other players, like you mentioned in Europe, Russia, China, other key players in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of moving parts here that make this much more complex than the North Korea situation.
Which is why we asked you. I always appreciate the expertise in watching this from a distance like I am, and I always want to have somebody with an opinion. So I appreciate you coming and sharing some of your knowledge with us about because this is something that's going to change the Middle East one way or the other pretty quickly now that this deal is over. So I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah.
We'll be back.